At my nephew's graduation banquet, I gave him a 6,000 yuan phone, only to be brutally murdered after he disdained it. Before I died, my nephew smashed the phone on my already fractured skull and stomped on my face while humiliating and cursing me. "It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, my mom would have given me a phone worth over 10,000 yuan. I wouldn't have taken this crappy phone to school, wouldn't have been mocked by my classmates, and wouldn't have failed to find a girlfriend." After I died, my sister-in-law blamed me, crying as she accused me of not knowing how to give a proper gift, saying I deserved to be killed, and even dragged her son down with me. My brother blamed me for hurting his son's self-esteem, ruining his future, and called it my own fault. Meanwhile, my parents cursed me as a jinx while also issuing a letter of forgiveness. With my parents' letter of forgiveness, the family's false testimonies, and my brother using his position to get a psychiatric diagnosis for his son, my nephew was ultimately acquitted. Seeing this outcome, the me floating in the air was so furious that my soul felt like it was burning. To my surprise, I opened my eyes and found myself back at my nephew's graduation banquet, and right now, I'm holding the very phone I was supposed to give my nephew in my previous life. Memories from my past life flooded my mind in an instant, and the pain of being killed by my nephew made my hand tremble involuntarily. Thinking back to my previous life, at the graduation banquet, I gave my nephew a 6,000 yuan phone, but my sister-in-law, with a sarcastic tone, said she was planning to take him to buy an Apple phone. Since I had already given him one, she wouldn't need to. In the end, my sister-in-law tied a red string around my nephew's wrist, turning a 10,000 yuan Apple phone into a few cents red string. The disparity was almost too much for my nephew to bear. As a result, my nephew blamed all his suffer after enrolling in school on the phone I gave him, claiming that I had caused him to miss out on an Apple phone, leading to ridicule from his classmates, making it hard for him to find a girlfriend, and ultimately resulting in my brutal murder. Coming to my senses, I noticed everyone's eyes fixed on my hand, especially my nephew, who was full of anticipation as he looked at the phone in my hand. This time, however, I did not give him the phone as I had in my previous life. "Since you think the phone I gave is cheap, I won't give one this time. I'm curious to see if my sister-in-law will take him to buy an over 10,000 yuan Apple phone." I pretended not to notice everyone's expressions and quickly tried to put the phone back in my bag, but my sister-in-law's voice suddenly rang out. "Sister, is this the phone you bought for Jack?" "Oh. I was planning to take Jack to buy the latest Apple phone after dinner." Since my sister-in-law is still saying the same thing as she did in my previous life, before she could finish, I interrupted her and quickly stashed my phone in my bag. "Sister-in-law, you've got it wrong. My phone is only 6,000 yuan, nowhere near good enough for Jack. You have good taste though. That new iPhone is excellent. That's the kind of phone that would suit my big nephew." After saying that, I turned to my nephew and addressed him. "Jack, aren't you going to thank your mom?" My nephew was stunned to hear that my sister-in-law was going to buy him an iPhone. It wasn't until I spoke that he snapped out of his excitement and joyfully got up to hug her. "Mom, I knew you loved me the most." My sister-in-law's face darkened noticeably, but she still forced a smile and nodded. "Of course, you're my son, who else would I be good to? But your aunt has to agree first." As soon as my sister-in-law finished speaking, she immediately looked at me. "Little sister, we'll follow your lead. If you say buy, I'll buy." My parents quickly caught on and chimed in. "Right, let Nana make the decision. Jack is so outstanding, he deserves the best. Nana will definitely agree, won't she?" While my parents were saying things my nephew liked to hear, they were also giving me meaningful glances. I sneered inwardly. Here we go again. This is the usual routine at home when discussing my nephew's education. One plays good cop, the other bad cop. My brother, sister-in-law, and parents play the good cop, while I play the bad cop, to prevent my nephew from developing a vain and extravagant lifestyle. My brother and sister-in-law practice a kind of poverty education with him. However, they don't want to be the bad guys. So whenever my nephew makes excessive demands, my brother, sister-in-law, and parents drag me out as the scapegoat. Either let me step in to dissuade him, or just say Auntie won't allow it. Right now, their looks are telling me to keep playing the bad cop. They don't want their nephew to buy such an expensive phone, but they don't want to be the bad guys, so they're pushing it onto me. This is their usual old trick, but unfortunately, I'm no longer willing to play the villain. In my previous life, I truly loved my nephew and went all out to support his education. And what happened? He ended up killing me, so how could I possibly continue to cooperate with them after being reborn? As for whether my nephew would be vain or extravagant, what does that have to do with me? Besides, if he weren't vain, how would my next plan unfold? Amid my brother and parents' confident expressions, I said something that instantly changed their faces. Of course we should buy it. It's a good thing. I wholeheartedly agree. After saying that, I looked at my parents and said with a smile, Mom and Dad, you both said my nephew deserves the best, so of course, as his aunt, I wouldn't stand in the way. I fully support it. Hearing my response, my parents and my brother and sister-in-law all looked incredulous, but my nephew happily gave me a heart gesture. Auntie is the best. Seeing my nephew's face, I remembered the brutal way he killed me in my past life. Good. This is just the beginning. There's even better to come. After I spoke, my parents immediately began to scold me in a panic, forgetting to play the good cop. What's wrong with you? Jack is being childish, but are you joining in the nonsense too? That's over 10,000 yuan, nearly 20,000. Which student needs a phone that expensive? My brother didn't expect me not only to agree but also to strongly support the idea, and his face immediately fell. Anna, what exactly are you trying to say? My sister-in-law was also in a panic. As encouraging frugality for her son was her strategy, she immediately expressed her disapproval. That's a phone worth over 10,000, this will make the child vain. How could you agree to this? Facing the accusations from my parents and brother-in-law, this time I'm going to play the bad cop. I look at the few of them with disbelief. Dad, Mom, didn't you just say Jack deserves the best? Or are you saying you don't actually want him to have such a good phone? Do you think he doesn't deserve it? After saying that, I look at my brother. What do you mean by a few? Isn't this fulfilling your sister-in-law's wishes, or are you saying you never intended to buy it for him? And sister-in-law, Jack is already this old. Using an Apple phone is just normal. How is that being vain? Or were you just saying it casually earlier, with no real intention of buying one for Jack? After I said all this, my nephew's expression instantly turned cold, with a hint of the look he had when he wanted to kill me. You guys, do you really not want me to have an Apple phone? Seeing their eldest grandson angry, my parents quickly denied it. No way, how could we think that? Worried that he might have a bad relationship with his son, my brother and sister-in-law quickly refuted. Don't listen to your aunt's nonsense. There's no such thing. I quickly pretended to misunderstand them and said to my sister-in-law, if it's not that, then I must have misunderstood. I thought you changed your mind and didn't want to buy it anymore. It's not that she changed her mind. My sister-in-law never intended to buy it in the first place. In my previous life, my sister-in-law only saw that I had already bought a phone for her son and deliberately acted like she was doing me a favor to boost her own ego, but her son took it seriously, thinking it was my fault that he missed out on the iPhone he had been longing for. When my sister-in-law heard what I said, her face darkened again, and she quickly replied, no such thing, it's just an iPhone. I just have something to do today, let's go buy it this weekend. Hearing that his mother was going to buy an iPhone, my nephew's expression immediately brightened. My parents and brother frowned, clearly unwilling to spend over 10,000 yuan on a phone for my nephew. I noticed the expressions on their faces. It seems these people are going to try to stop it again. To my surprise, on the weekend, my sister-in-law actually took my nephew to the phone store, and deliberately called me along, perhaps to show me that she keeps her word. However, just as my nephew was excitedly about to pick a phone, my sister-in-law's phone rang. It turned out my parents had food poisoning. After hanging up, we rushed to the hospital. My brother and sister-in-law used the excuse of our parents being hospitalized to lecture their son, Jack. Mom keeps her word, but as you can see, your grandparents' hospitalization also costs money. It's not that Mom and Dad don't want to buy it for you. Do you think a phone is more important, or your grandparents? The nephew clenched his fists tightly and remained silent, and in that moment, I realized this was the plan my parents and brother's family had come up with. In the end, my nephew's Apple phone was swapped by my brother and sister-in-law for 1,000 yuan old person phone, under the pretext of their parents' illness. After my nephew stormed out of the hospital in anger, my parents instantly recovered, and my sister-in-law said triumphantly, see, isn't it done now? 1,000 yuan phone still works just fine. I stood outside the door, picking up my phone to record all of this. In this life, although I didn't give my nephew a phone, I can prepare other gifts for him. In this new life, I will settle these grudges one by one, whether it's my nephew's brutal murder of me, my brother and sister-in-law's twisting of the truth, or my parents' forgiveness letter. Never forgive anything. The Apple phone incident seems over, but it's just beginning. I'm also starting to prepare a gift for my nephew, one he'll never forget in his lifetime. On this day, I took out the small ad I had torn from the hospital restroom a few days ago and placed it on the table, then called my nephew. Jack, if you're free, come over, Auntie has a gift for you. My nephew arrived in less than an hour. I picked up the bag beside me and started rummaging through it. My nephew watched my movements, his eyes lighting up instantly. However, his expression froze the moment I pulled out a talisman from the bag. Pretending not to notice, I stood up and hung the talisman around his neck. Jack, this is the safe luck your aunt specially got for you at the temple to ensure your safety and smooth life. After hanging up the amulet, I patted my nephew on the shoulder. Just as I was about to accidentally knock over the small advertisement on the table, my nephew suddenly spoke up. Auntie, was the phone you had at the graduation banquet meant for me? I didn't expect my nephew to suddenly ask me about this. That's why he was eagerly watching me rummage through my bag, thinking I was going to give him the phone. Oh, how nice of you to think so. I stopped my little action, then pretended to have a wronged and helpless expression, and sighed. That phone was indeed meant for you, but since your mom said she was going to buy you an Apple phone, I was afraid that if I gave it to you, she wouldn't buy you the Apple phone, so I didn't give it to you. Hearing my words, my nephew's expression grew even worse. He clenched his fists tightly, his voice trembling with a hint of a sob. But she didn't buy me an Apple phone. It's all in the past. Let's not talk about it. By the way, how are you doing at school? I knew he was having a tough time. That 1,000 yuan phone made him feel inferior and overly sensitive. He took every word from others as a veiled mockery, which strained his relationships with classmates and roommates. As a result, people instinctively kept their distance from him. After all, no one wants to get too close to someone who seems like a mad dog. My words immediately struck a nerve with my nephew, but he was still holding back. He said it was fine and then asked me again, Auntie, since the phone you bought was meant for me, could you give it to me again? In my previous life, he despised the phone I gave him as a piece of junk, and now he's asking for it again. You already have a phone, there's no need for so many. Hearing me say that, my nephew immediately got anxious. How can the crappy phone my parents bought me compare to your high-end one? The crappy phone my nephew used to talk about in my previous life has now become a high-end phone in this one, indeed. Comparison brings harm. How ironic. Of course, I won't give him the phone, however, I can give him other things. I sighed, my tone filled with helplessness. Jack, the phone was indeed originally meant for you, but once I found out your mom was going to buy you an Apple phone, I returned it. It wouldn't be hard to buy you a new one, but you know your grandparents are sick, and this isn't the right time for me to do that. My words gave my nephew hope, only to disappoint him again. Seeing his disappointed expression, I quickly changed the subject and continued speaking. However, if you really want an Apple phone, you can always earn money to buy one yourself. Hearing this, my nephew's eyes lit up and he eagerly asked me how to make money. There are plenty of ways to make money. Like handing out flyers or working as a waiter, you could earn enough for a phone in a few months. However, when my nephew heard a few months, his eyes filled with despair, and he shook his head muttering to himself, a few months, that's way too slow. Of course, I know it's too slow, given his current state. He only wants to make quick money. I had already prepared a way for her to make quick money. I patted my nephew's arm and said earnestly, what else? So, focus on your studies. With your talent, you're bound to succeed in the future. Of course, I knew my nephew wasn't in the right state of mind to focus on studying. Who doesn't know how to say nice things? As I pulled my hand back, I accidentally knocked a small advertisement off the table, slowly bending down to pick it up, all the while grumbling, I'm so annoyed, these people are getting more and more outrageous. Kidney sale ads are now being stuck in hospitals. As I was about to toss the ad into the trash, my previously despairing nephew suddenly lit up and snatched the ad from my hand. Auntie, let me throw it away for you. I squinted and smiled, saying it was fine, and made sure to tell him to throw it far away. Until my nephew left, I sipped my water cup contentedly. Less than 3 days later, my nephew's school called. It turned out that my nephew hadn't gone to school today. My brother and sister-in-law were frantic, rushing out to look for him, while my parents sat at home wiping their tears. Muttering about whether something had happened, I sat on the couch, scrolling through my phone, watching the time pass. I knew my nephew had gone to sell a kidney. It took him 3 days to decide to sell a kidney, yet in my previous life, he killed me in just 3 minutes. It wasn't until evening that my nephew returned, weak, holding a newly purchased Apple phone. Seeing their nephew, the parents, and his brother and sister-in-law almost burst into tears. hugging him tightly. Only to have him scream in pain the next second, "Quick, let go, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing the nephew cry out in pain, his sister-in-law quickly let go and looked down. Seeing Jack's white t-shirt turn blood red, she screamed in fright and quickly lifted the boy's shirt. The nephew's left side was wrapped in thick bandages, which were stained dark red with seeping blood, and he was trembling all over, his lips quivering in pain. The sister-in-law was trembling all over in fear at the sight. "Son, what's going on? Who hurt you? Why so much blood?" The doctor-brother immediately realized the severity upon seeing his nephew's wound. He grabbed his nephew's hand, his eyes red and voice hoarse. "What exactly did you do?" The nephew clenched his teeth, cold sweat streaming down his face, and like a victor, he raised his phone and waved it at his brother. "What did I do? I sold a kidney. See, you wouldn't buy it for me, but I could still get it myself." The nephew's words were like a bolt from the blue, leaving everyone stunned. "What, you sold a kidney? Are you crazy? How could you sell a kidney?" Finally snapping out of her shock, the sister-in-law, consumed by anger, slapped Jack across the face. Already in pain, the nephew's forehead was drenched in sweat after being slapped. Leaning on the wall with one hand, he shouted angrily at his aunt through his suffering, "If you can break your promise, why can't I sell a kidney? Even though I lost a kidney, I gained my dignity. From now on, I'll never be laughed at again." Hearing her nephew talk about dignity, his mother's tears flowed even more fiercely, crying and screaming at the same time. "It's just a phone, yet you sold a kidney and even brought up dignity. Is it really worth it?" "Of course it's worth it, why wouldn't it be?" the nephew suddenly roared, yelling at his mother. "You said you were going to buy it for me, but what happened? You got me a crappy old phone, I got laughed at in school." My brother and sister-in-law were shocked by their son's words, their eyes wide. My parents couldn't say a word. It was a long time before the three of them embraced and wept. What a sin, how could this happen? I stood outside the crowd, watching this scene, and a cold smile curled my lips. This is just the beginning. My nephew was happily showing off his beloved iPhone on social media, but within a few days, he was no longer in high spirits. Due to the inadequate facilities of the illegal organ trafficking organization, my nephew developed post-operative infection and was rushed to the hospital. After emergency treatment and examination, my nephew developed severe complications and will require ongoing medical treatment and rehabilitation. Upon hearing the news, my brother, sister-in-law, and parents were utterly devastated. I stood coldly to the side, watching my parents sob uncontrollably. My hands clenched tightly. In my previous life, even as I died, my parents didn't shed a single tear. Not only did they curse me as a jinx, but they also issued a letter of forgiveness for my nephew. Now, my parents are crying their eyes out because my nephew lost a kidney. It turns out that my life was worth less to them than a kidney of my nephew's, but it doesn't matter anymore, since my nephew lost his kidney. The family has been in chaos. My brother, sister-in-law, and parents not only had to take turns caring for him but also had to seek justice from the institution. The mere month of running around left them all looking haggard and lifeless. In the end, the shady institution was afraid the situation would escalate and settled privately for $2 million, but no amount of money could undo the damage done to my nephew. Now, my brother, sister-in-law, and parents regret it. They regret not buying him an Apple phone, which they believe pushed him to this desperate path. My nephew was discharged after half a month and returned home to recuperate. At first, the whole family felt sympathy and guilt for him, but over time, coupled with his daily outbursts, my brother, sister-in-law, and parents' attitudes began to change. My brother and sister-in-law seem even busier, not sure what they're busy with, and the responsibility of taking care of my nephew has fallen on my parents. They're exhausted and called me, hoping I could go back and help them. Of course, I refused, citing work as an excuse. It wasn't until this day that my parents called me. "Nana, it's bad, someone's dead, you need to come back right away, a life lost." It's a bit unexpected, since I haven't really pushed the limits yet. The last straw that breaks the camel's back isn't in place, and logically, my nephew shouldn't be at the breaking point yet. I'm hesitating whether to go or not. However, my parents' anxious voices came again. "Jack is going to jump off the building, hurry home." Is Jack really going to jump off the building? No way. How can the show go on if he dies? Realizing this, I immediately got up and drove home. I rushed back. Just as I reached the entrance, my nephew's roaring voice echoed from the living room. "I don't care, if you don't do as I say, I'll jump down from here." My nephew's voice carried a tone of threat. I hurried over and saw my nephew standing on the windowsill, one hand holding onto the window. The brother, sister-in-law, and parents dared not approach, standing 3 meters away, as the sister-in-law cried and tried to stop her nephew. "Son, what are you doing? It's dangerous up there. Come down quickly. You're still recovering from your injury. The doctor told you to rest." Although the sister-in-law was crying bitterly, her tone was no longer as caring as before, her tired voice carrying a hint of impatience. No sooner had the sister-in-law finished speaking than the nephew let out a roar. "Rest well, what were you doing while I was resting? You complain about how much money I've cost you. Do you think I'm just a burden now, that I'm useless? Son, what are you saying? That's not true at all. Your parents love you so much, how could we think you're a burden or useless? Don't overthink things, listen to your mom, and focus on getting better, okay? Haha, love me. If you love me, then tell me what this is." "What is this?" the nephew said, pulling a piece of paper from his pocket, unfolded it, and angrily threw it at everyone. Just then, the paper landed at my feet, and I bent down to pick it up and glance at it. However, when I saw what was written on it, I couldn't keep a straight face. It was my sister-in-law's ultrasound report, and it said, intrauterine pregnancy. Meaning she was pregnant. Is this the big one being scrapped, and now preparing to train the little one? No wonder my nephew is so excited, he even wants to jump off a building. I didn't expect my brother and sister-in-law to throw another catalyst into the mix before I even had a chance to act. I suppressed the smile at the corner of my mouth and immediately looked at my brother and sister-in-law, wearing an expression of disbelief. "Brother, sister-in-law, how could you do this? Having a second child at this critical moment, what were you thinking?" My brother and sister-in-law never expected their son to find the ultrasound report, and their expressions were quite panicked. My parents were also visibly surprised, but soon a hint of excitement flashed in their eyes. When questioned by me, my brother and sister-in-law stammered and claimed it was just an accident. I knew it wasn't an accident, but I didn't call them out. Instead, I spoke in a heartfelt manner. "Brother and sister-in-law, since it's an accident, let's not keep this child. Jack needs better care now. How can you take care of Jack if you have this child to look after? In everything I say, I'm always thinking of my nephew." My nephew was moved to tears, his frail body, weakened by illness, trembling uncontrollably. "Auntie, you're the best to me." I couldn't help but sneer inwardly at what my nephew said. Yes, I treated him well, but how did he treat me in my previous life? Treat him well? Does he even deserve it? This second child was so hard won by my brother and sister-in-law, there was no way they would abort it. So my sister-in-law immediately refuted my words. "Anna, how could you be so heartless? Even if it was an accident, it's still a life. How can you just say you'll abort it? Do you even have any humanity?" "Sister-in-law, am I heartless? Am I inhuman? Aren't you just as heartless? Do you even have humanity? Why don't you consider Jack? He needs the most care right now. Have you thought about how, with a second child, you'll have the energy to take care of him?" My nephew was even more grateful to me after hearing my words, and the next second he looked at his mother and laughed. "See, is this the love you talk about? I'm suffering so much from illness, and instead of thinking about how to take care of me, you're thinking about having a second child. You don't even care for me as much as my aunt does. Jack, how could you think that way? Isn't it for your own good that your mom and I are doing this? The doctor said you'll need someone to take care of you in the future, who will take care of you when we're gone. Isn't it better to have a younger sibling who can keep you company and take care of you later?" The sister-in-law's words made her nephew shout in anger. "What do you mean, for my own good? It's all just excuses. If you really cared about me, all your energy should be focused on taking care of me, not secretly planning for a second child. I don't care, but I'm telling you now, either it goes or I go, either I stay or it stays. If you don't abort that child, I'll jump out of this window." As Jack spoke, he extended one foot out of the window. My brother, sister-in-law, and parents all screamed in fright. Okay, we agree. Isn't that enough?" My parents, in a hurry, quickly intervened and shouted their agreement to my nephew's demands. However, my brother and sister-in-law got anxious and called out, "Mom and Dad." The parents exchanged a glance, and upon seeing their parents' expression, the brother and sister-in-law quickly nodded in agreement. "Jack, your parents promise you, they will go to the hospital tomorrow to terminate the pregnancy. Can you come down now, please?" Hearing that his brother and sister-in-law agreed, the nephew finally pulled back his foot. "Is what you're saying true? You're not lying to me, are you?" The brother and sister-in-law solemnly assured their nephew. "We're not lying to you. We don't want this child, and we'll have it aborted tomorrow." The nephew believed what his uncle and aunt said and was finally calmed down. The next day, the sister-in-law immediately went to the hospital to have the child aborted and even showed the nephew the abortion record. I just glanced at my sister-in-law's abortion record and smirked slightly. When my nephew saw that his mother had aborted the child, he finally stopped threatening to kill himself, and it was time for me to set my plan in motion. That day, I went to see my nephew as usual. However, my nephew stormed in front of everyone with his phone, pointing at his parents and grandparents with a desperate rage. "It's you. It was you all along. I ended up like this because of you, Jack. What are you talking about? What do you mean we did this? What exactly happened?" My parents and brother's family were all confused by my nephew's random words. But I understood what he was referring to. I smirked, enjoying the imminent confrontation unfolding before me. In the confused gazes of my brother's family and parents, my nephew raised his phone, and the figures of my parents and brother's family appeared on the screen. Then, voices were heard. "See, it's done. 1,000 yuan phone works just fine." Sister-in-law's triumphant voice rang out. "Isn't it wrong for us to deceive Jack like this?" This was my brother's voice. "What's wrong with that? That's over 10,000 yuan. How could we afford to buy him such an expensive phone? This will spoil him. I'm only doing this for his own good," the sister-in-law complained. The brother mumbled quietly. "Isn't it because you said we should buy our son an Apple phone? Otherwise, how would this have happened? I was just joking at the time. I never intended to buy him one. I thought your sister was going to give him a phone, so I said that on purpose. Who knew it would come to this?" After saying that, the sister-in-law smiled again. "My parents are still smart, coming up with such a scheme of pretending to be sick." The recording continued, but the air in the living room instantly froze. Jack's face gradually turned pale, then flushed red. By the end of the video, the malice in his nephew's eyes grew increasingly intense. He looked at my parents, his eyes filled with anger. "Grandma and Grandpa, you always say you love and care for me, but how could you come up with such a vicious lie to deceive me? Are you happy now that I've ended up like this? Have I become a useless person, just as you wanted?" The parents looked flustered, wanting to explain. But their nephew didn't give them a chance. In the next moment, he glared viciously at his sister-in-law. "And you, so you never intended to buy me an Apple phone from the start, but if you weren't going to buy one, why did you lie to me? If it weren't for you, my aunt would have given me a better phone. Because of your words, I lost that chance. You made me the laughingstock of my classmates. You took away my dignity. You ruined me." The sister-in-law was shocked to see the video of her speaking in the hospital on her nephew's phone. She panicked instantly and rushed to explain. "Son, no, it's not what you think. I was doing it for your own good. I just didn't want you to become so vain." The sister-in-law tried to comfort her nephew while speaking, but before she could get close, he pushed her down. "Ah!" The sister-in-law, who had been pushed down, cried out in pain. The brother turned pale with fright when he saw his sister-in-law being pushed down, and rushed over to help her up. My parents were even more frantic, shouting loudly, "Oh dear, hurry to the hospital, my little grandson can't be in danger." Hearing my parents' words, the nephew's face turned ashen, his eyes bloodshot. Trembling, he raised his finger and pointed at his sister-in-law's stomach. You actually didn't abort the baby. You've deceived me again." In the face of my nephew's accusations, my brother, sister-in-law, and parents didn't have time to explain or comfort him. They quickly rushed to the hospital. After everyone left, I walked over, patted my nephew on the shoulder, and sighed. "Jack, I didn't realize your mother was just speaking casually at the time. As for the child, since your mother doesn't want to abort it, you should respect her decision." After saying those words, I quickly made my escape. After all, my nephew's expression just now was 8/10 similar to when he killed me in my previous life. I knew that my nephew's psychological defenses had crumbled, and his current silence was merely the calm before the storm. 3 days later, the internet exploded. A live stream went viral, but it didn't last long. It was shut down shortly after it started due to its excessively gruesome content. In the video, my nephew aimed the knife at my brother and sister-in-law, just as he had done to me in my previous life. However, in my previous life, my nephew hadn't sold a kidney, so he was strong and nearly slaughtered me in a brutal manner. In this life, without a kidney, my nephew lacked the strength, so he drugged my brother, sister-in-law, and parents, tied them up, and only killed them after they fully regained consciousness. He cut off his sister-in-law's tongue. "Since you enjoy lying so much, there's no need to keep this tongue." In the video, The voices of my brother, sister-in-law, and parents pleading were the same as in my previous life, but it was all useless. Having dealt with my brother and sister-in-law, next were my parents, with my nephew holding the special food he had prepared. Grandpa and Grandma, you guys love pretending to have food poisoning, don't you? Well, this time you don't have to pretend, I'll make it real for you. I never expected my nephew to go live. I calmly took out my phone, called the police, and headed home. By the time I arrived, the police had already restrained my nephew. My brother and sister-in-law were hacked to death on the spot, just like me in my previous life. There was no saving them. The parents were rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment after eating special food that caused poisoning, while their nephew was taken away by the police. In the end, the parents were saved. The two of them wailed and cursed the nephew, calling him a demon. Hearing my parents' curses, I let out a cold laugh. In my previous life, the nephew killed me, and the entire time, they were cursing me, calling me a jinx, blaming me for dragging down their precious grandson. How is it that now their precious grandson has become a demon? Indeed, only when it hurts you personally do you realize it. Mom and Dad, Jack just wanted an iPhone. If you had agreed to it back then, none of this would have happened. I stepped forward, repeating the same words they had said in my previous life. The parents were furious, cursing loudly. Nonsense, does he even deserve it? I must have been blind to have ever treasured such a vile creature. Sob, my son, my little grandson, gone, all gone. The parents cried and cursed. They cried for their son and the unborn grandson, cursing their nephew as a beast. Mom and Dad, no matter what, Jack is the only child of my brother. Do you really want to watch him die? If you issue a letter of forgiveness, Jack can get a reduced sentence. In my previous life, after my nephew killed me, my parents issued a letter of forgiveness. I wonder if this time, with my brother dead, they will still issue one letter of forgiveness. He killed your brother, my son, we will never forgive him. In the previous life, they weren't greatly affected, only because it was me, their daughter, who died. I wasn't particularly upset, since I had already understood in the previous life. But no matter what, Jack is still your grandson. The parents trembled all over. No. He is a demon, a murderer. He is not our grandson. We don't have such a grandson. Heh, now you know he's a demon and a murderer. But in the previous life, what did they tell the neighbors? They said the child was young, and it must have been my fault as an aunt for doing something wrong that angered him. It's all my fault for not being a good aunt. I turned off my phone and left. After all, I still had to handle the funeral arrangements for my brother and sister-in-law. I hastily took care of the funeral arrangements for my brother and sister-in-law and received a request from my nephew to see me, just in time. I had one last gift to give him. In the detention center, my nephew's already sickly body looked even more emaciated. Seeing me, his eyes welled up with tears. Auntie, save me, I don't want to die. He doesn't want to die. But who does? In my previous life, I didn't want to die either. I begged and pleaded, but did my nephew show me any mercy? I squint slightly, my eyes cold. Save you? How do you want me to save you? Hearing my question, my nephew excitedly said, as long as Grandpa and Grandma issue a letter of forgiveness, there's a way. Hearing my nephew mention a letter of forgiveness, I looked at him in surprise. Could it be that my nephew has also been reborn? I suppressed my curiosity and said, letter of forgiveness. Unfortunately, your grandparents would never give you one. Hearing this, my nephew shouted excitedly, no way, absolutely not. They will give me a letter of forgiveness. I know, I'll be fine. Amid my nephew's furious shouts, I produced the recording of my conversation with my parents, my final gift to him. After listening to the recording, my nephew's face was filled with fear and disbelief. How could this be? It shouldn't be like this. No, it's not like this. My nephew muttered about the impossibility of it all, then suddenly thought of something, and excitedly addressed me. Auntie, there must be a way. You can help me fake a mental illness certificate, so I won't get into trouble. Now I'm sure my nephew has also been reborn, but what an unfortunate timing for him. It's useless, even with a certificate, I said coldly, shattering my nephew's last hope. Hearing me say it's useless, my nephew became completely agitated. How could it be useless? In my previous life, my nephew stopped abruptly as he reached this point. I looked at him with a half-smile, speaking slowly. What happened in your previous life? Are you saying that your grandparents would issue a letter of forgiveness, your father would forge a certificate, and then with a false testimony, everything would be fine? Yes, that's right. However, before my nephew could finish his sentence, he suddenly widened his eyes in disbelief. staring at me. You, how do you know all this? Could it be that you, too, have been reborn? I neither confirmed nor denied it, but instead, I gave a cryptic smile. What do you think? This time, my nephew was not just terrified, his frail body was trembling violently. It's you, all you, everything is you. You deliberately didn't give me the phone. Why didn't you give me the phone? If you had given me that phone, nothing would have happened, and I wouldn't have had to carry a cheap phone around, feeling embarrassed. It's all your fault, huh? In my previous life, he blamed me for giving him a phone, and now he blames me for not giving him one. I smirked coldly. Give you a phone? I'm afraid you'll blame me for making you miss out on an Apple phone, for making you the laughingstock of your classmates, and for ruining your chances with girls. Tell me, isn't what your aunt said right? Jack was completely stunned by my words, because those were the exact words he had said in his previous life, and at this moment, he finally realized that he was truly about to die, perhaps out of fear of death. He cried and apologized to me, begging me to save him. Auntie, I was wrong, I really was. Please, save me, I don't want to die. I chuckled at my nephew's apology and then turned to leave. Shortly after I left, Jack started acting crazy, claiming he had a mental illness and that he wouldn't be held accountable for murder. However, the doctor diagnosed that he was mentally sound, although my parents were saved. They developed mental issues after witnessing the death of my brother and sister-in-law. I sent them to a sanatorium. However, just a few days later, the sanatorium suddenly called, "Ms. Wu, something has happened to your parents." Upon receiving this news, I immediately went to the sanatorium. It turned out that my parents' condition had suddenly worsened, and the nursing home was no longer suitable for them. They notified me to transfer them to a psychiatric hospital, perhaps due to mental torment. My parents suddenly looked a decade older, their hair as white as snow. Seeing my aged parents, I felt no emotion at all. When they saw me, they excitedly stumbled toward me, muttering incoherently, "Nana, we were wrong, that beast is a demon, he's a demon, yes, so much blood, demons, demons, forgiveness is useless, it shouldn't be forgiven, clearly. My parents' mental state is very poor, they speak incoherently, in fits and starts." But when I heard the phrase, "shouldn't be forgiven," I immediately understood. Could it be that my parents have memories from a past life? No wonder their mental illness has worsened again, with memories from a past life in their minds, and their pre-existing mental issues. How could it not be severe? It seems that something happened after my previous life that I wasn't aware of, but whatever it was, it has nothing to do with me. I quickly sent my parents to a mental hospital. As for what they said, I can't be bothered to think about it, because I'm busy dealing with the property of my brother, sister-in-law, and parents. Due to my parents' mental issues, I took over all their property as the guardian, since my sister-in-law's parents had already passed away, and she had no siblings, plus my nephew died. All of my brother and sister-in-law's property was inherited by me, including the $2 million from my nephew's kidney sale compensation. Oh. And that iPhone my nephew traded a kidney for, I sold it online for $1,000. Why so cheap? It was too cursed, so I had to offer some spiritual compensation to the buyer. I also sold my brother and sister-in-law's house, along with my parents. Since theirs was a haunted house, the price was much lower than market value. With the inheritance from my parents and them, I got a total of $50 million. With this money, I plan to move to a new city, after living 2 lifetimes. This city has left me with nothing but bad memories. After quitting my job, I moved to a city where spring flowers bloomed, bought a house with a yard, filled it with my favorite flowers, and planted 2 osmanthus trees. Then, I occasionally went traveling, sharing the beautiful scenery from my trips online and starting a career as a content creator. A month later, my nephew's verdict was handed down, and in this life, he couldn't escape legal punishment. The prison staff informed me that my nephew was about to be executed and that he wanted to see me one last time, and of course, I would never see him again. However, I left him with a message: a small favor breeds gratitude, a large one breeds resentment. You're an ungrateful wretch. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. After getting into university, my educated youth husband wanted to sell the admission spot. I sold my blood to pay for his tuition and worked as his nanny for 4 years, all so he could focus on his studies without any worries. Later, he became a member of the Academy of Sciences and achieved great success. Yet, after his sister-in-law died in childbirth, he killed my entire family. I and Wendy went to the countryside together back then. It's all your fault and your brother's for breaking us apart. If I had sold my university spot to redeem Wendy, she wouldn't have spent half her life in hardship with your brother, only to be wronged by him, dead. Turns out, both my brother and I were wrong in love. After being reborn, I returned to the day of estimating my scores. Bella. I'm estimated to be first in the rankings. I'm planning to apply to Q University. They say this spot can fetch a big price. Looking at my estimated score, which is 30 points higher than Sam's, this time, sis isn't playing along with you. Seeing that I didn't respond, Sam glanced at the estimated score paper in my hand and offered a perfunctory consolation. You're just a little village girl. Getting 100 points or so is good enough. Don't overthink it. Oh. Did you hear what I just said? I nodded. Go ahead and sell it if you want. He didn't expect me to be so understanding and was overjoyed, wanting to kiss my cheek. The admission spot at Q University could fetch a good price. When the time comes, I'll buy you new clothes from the Supply and Marketing Cooperative. I calmly moved away. No need, just return all the expenses I covered for your education and exams. Sam was stunned. Are you breaking up with me? Is it because I'm not going to Q that you can't show off in the village? I shook my head, but he snapped out of his shock, sneering coldly. A country girl is just a country girl, with such a narrow view. If I sold my admission spot this year, does that mean I can't get it next year? Let's break up, Bella, don't regret it later. Watching his decisive departure, I tore the draft paper I had been using to estimate my score into shreds. In my past life, I supported Sam in his studies. I cooked and washed for him during the day, and stayed up late with him at night to study. I signed up for the college entrance exam with him to prove that I was worthy of him. After estimating his score as first, he eagerly filled all three of his willing with Q University. I knew that Q University had only one admission slot in our city, so I silently burned the estimated score sheet that was 30 points higher than his, along with my application. Sam suddenly suggested selling the admission slot, and I naively thought it was because he couldn't bear to see me continue to sacrifice my youth to support his lofty ambitions. Little did I expect that all he had in mind was the idea of redeeming Wendy. Wendy was a fellow educated youth who went to the countryside with him. Unable to endure the hardships of farm work, she quickly took the initiative to arrange a blind date and married my brother. My brother and I were both born and raised as farmers, naturally drawn to and admiring intellectuals. Back then, matchmakers were practically breaking down our door, but he never gave in. The moment he saw Wendy, my brother came home and took out the dowry he had saved for over a decade, giving it all to her as betrothal gifts. After marriage, I took care of the household chores, while my brother worked in the fields to earn money. My sister-in-law's hands never touched dirt. Many years later, Sam repeatedly expressed regret for not being able to rescue Wendy from my brother, causing her to endure half a lifetime of hardship, only to be ultimately killed by my brother. It wasn't until he strangled me with bloodshot eyes that I finally understood. It turned out that Sam and Wendy had already pledged their lives to each other. Their respective marriages were merely an unavoidable measure. My brother and I were the suckers being drained, while they were the true love, this lifetime. I'm not planning to hand over my future again. Sam was going to sell his admission spot to Q to save Wendy. Perfect timing. I'll be with him, waiting for the day the admission letter arrives. The news of Sam's top score quickly spread throughout the village. A few days later, he kicked down the door to my house and threw down a bundle of cash with great flourish. I've repaid what I owed the Smith family, principal and interest. No need to thank me. It seems he's already bragged about it on the black market, selling the university spot ahead of time before the admission letter arrives in 7 days. Done. I glanced down and saw about 100 or so pieces of money on the ground. Just last year, the college entrance exam was reinstated, and Sam failed to pass. To ensure he could focus on a year of retaking, I spent all my savings to get a valuable set of review materials through connections. Every night he studied late. I would bring meat and fish to vary his meals and keep him nourished. It wasn't until one occasion that he noticed I always wore long sleeves, even in summer. Lifting my arm revealed a dense cluster of needle marks. Sam stood there in shock for a long time, his eyes reddening as he hugged me tightly. I can't wait any longer. Marry me, Bella. I will definitely get into the best university and make the whole village envy you for marrying the right man. After that day, we held a simple wedding banquet. Sam felt guilty for not being able to afford even a single cent for the bride price, let alone the 3 turns and 1 ring, so he made a firm promise. on the day I get into university next year, I will register my marriage with Bella. If I don't get in, I will never cling to her and hold her back. In my past life, I waited for that day for a long time, but in Sam's eyes, all I had given, principal and interest combined, was worth only 100. I wouldn't be so petty as to turn down money, especially since I still need to save for college. Just as I was about to pick up the money, my brother came out of the house, restraining his anger as he pushed Sam away. Do you even deserve Bella? However, the next second, the sister-in-law stood firmly in front of Sam, her voice trembling. Leo, you can kill me if you want, but try to touch Sam and see what happens. Sam looked both heartbroken and touched. The brother was utterly stunned. The next day, Wendy left her brother and divorced him, arm in arm with Sam. Sam seemed to have sold the admission spot for a hefty price. He generously paid off Wendy's betrothal gifts, freeing her, and then lavishly provided her with all kinds of outfits and jewelry. Soon, rumors began to spread throughout the village. Some mocked my brother and me for our losses, while others scorned Wendy for her shamelessness. No one mentioned Sam. After all, he was practically a sure bet for Q University. With a bright future ahead, I pay no heed to the gossip around me and focus on packing my bags. Wendy, however, came to me dressed in a stylish new dress. You've been with Sam for so long, even selling blood to support his studies. It hasn't been easy, however, after a year of unclear service to him. You're now a used good no one wants. You'd better be wise and stop hovering, follow him around, or I'll report you for having an affair. I laughed. Did she really think I'd try to win him back after Sam sold his spot and had to repeat a year in the village? I calmly said, no matter how precious this piece of pork is, he's still a stinking bore. I'd rather not get close to him. Wendy only thought I was being petulant when I said that. She curled her lips, suddenly raised her hand toward me, but instead, she slapped herself across the face. Someone behind me angrily shoved me aside and quickly shielded Wendy. She buried her face in Sam's chest, covering her face and sobbing. I've gotten used to it over the past year. Whenever she or her brother are unhappy, they yell and scream at me. It's nothing. Sam's veins bulged on his forehead, and before I could react, he kicked me forcefully into the river. You vile country girl. You're not even worth a single hair on Wendy's head. Even if you sold your blood for me, I'd still find it disgusting. I fell ill for 2 days after being rescued. After this incident, my brother completely lost all hope in Wendy. As the time approached when the admission notice would arrive from my previous life, he accompanied me to the provincial capital to buy new clothes. In the department store, 2 familiar figures walked towards us. Sam's gaze fell on my pale face, and his brow furrowed slightly. Wendy, emboldened by her backing, no longer feared us, the country siblings, and her gaze was disdainful. But the moment she saw my brother spending money on me, his former sister-in-law, she couldn't help but furrow her brows. Bella, you really have the nerve to keep spending your brother's money, don't you? I gave a cold laugh. Ever since she married into the family, I haven't asked my brother for a single cent, even when times were tough. I'd rather sell blood than disturb the peace of their small family. Because I knew how much my brother had liked her, Wendy, I didn't want to make things difficult for him. Now that she sees Sam's bright future, she's kicked my brother aside to climb the social ladder and even started lecturing us siblings. Just as my brother asked me to try on a Shanghai brand watch, saying it would be useful for our trip to the capital, I liked it, and just as my brother was about to buy it with money and industrial coupons, a thick stack of 10 yuan notes was suddenly thrown onto the counter. I'll pay 30 more, wrap this watch up for me, I'm giving it to my fiancé. Sam spoke boldly to Wendy, but his eyes coldly glanced at me. The sales clerk paused for a moment, and I calmly asked, isn't there a first come, first served rule? Sam thought I was jealous and smirked lightly. Yes, Wendy was here first. You, the latecomer, don't deserve it. I'll add another 50, wrap it up. After that, no matter what my brother and I set our eyes on, he would always outbid us by adding more money. Wendy was surrounded by envious gazes from everyone in the mall, her smile radiant, as she looked at us with pity while carrying bags and bags of shopping. Sam will be able to get back into university next year and take me to the capital, where we'll live a life you can't even imagine. You siblings will be stuck farming and selling blood for the rest of your lives, so save your money. We're doing this for your own good, aren't you supposed to say thank you? Sam watched my reaction, raising an eyebrow slightly. I softly said, Sam, I truly need to thank you. If it weren't to be more worthy of him, if it weren't for staying up late every night, studying together with him, if not for saving him time, traveling dozens of miles each time to consult teachers, first understanding the problems he didn't get, and then explaining them to him upon returning, I wouldn't have scored so high. Change your fate through knowledge. Sam was taken aback, thinking I was putting on a brave face, and disdainfully walked away with Wendy. I noticed the dwindling amount of money in his increasingly empty pocket. I exchanged a glance with my brother and smiled. The next day was the day I received the admission notice. In my previous life, I rarely dreamed at night, dreaming of the final painful scene of my previous life, waking up in a cold sweat. At this moment, the sound of firecrackers rang out outside the window. Sam's triumphant laughter echoed in. To get into Q University, I owe it all to one person. If it weren't for Wendy's constant silent support, I would never have made it through. Wendy listened to his heartfelt confession, her eyes glistening with tears. I stood outside the long tent where Sam was throwing a lavish banquet, slightly furrowing my brow. It was Wendy who first noticed me. She flipped her hair, revealing a new watch on her wrist, and flashed a magnanimous smile. "Bella, you're here. Sit down quickly. I had Sam save a seat for you." Sam also cast an arrogant glance at me, as if he had expected me to show up. His eyes glinted with sarcasm as he continued, "The second person I want to thank is you, Bella. If it weren't for you rushing to cling to me without a title, and then cruelly breaking up with me before the college entrance exam results came out, I wouldn't have had the chance to connect with Wendy." Many people at the table looked awkward. Who doesn't know that Wendy was my ex-sister-in-law? But all I cared about was what he mentioned. "Sam, are you saying the scores are out?" The village secretary, beaming with joy, stood up and announced, "This time, Bella scored the highest in the entire city. Truly a remarkable achievement. Our county has really saved face." Wendy looked at Sam with admiration. "Exactly. It's 30 points higher than Sam's own estimated score." "Wow, that's high." It seems Bella was being too modest back then. In the midst of the exclamations and admiration, he waved his hand casually. "I never expected to perform beyond my usual abilities." I couldn't help but laugh. "Sam, of course you couldn't have anticipated that." He frowned, then suddenly chuckled. "Bella, I told you long ago, don't regret it. Now you deliberately come to my face to seek attention. Is it to win me back?" Sam spoke disdainfully, wrapping his arm around Wendy, who looked shy and coy. "I forgot to tell you, today's banquet is not only a celebration of my academic achievements to thank the villagers, but also my wedding banquet with Wendy. After she married into the Smith family, you and your brother constantly abused and bullied her, and even after the divorce, you wouldn't let her go, tarnishing her reputation with baseless accusations, scorn. She's not holding it against you siblings, and she's even inviting you to dinner. I'm not that forgiving." With that, Sam kicked over the chair in front of me. The room instantly buzzed with discussion. "Tisk tsk, the Smith siblings are really in a mess. Serves them right. Who told her to be so short-sighted? Grabbing at a cheap deal just makes you look stupid." Wendy's eyes sparkled with touched and happy tears as she buried her face in Sam's chest, but secretly lifted her lips towards me. Just then, the teacher rushed over with the municipal leaders, visibly excited. "The admission notice from Q University has arrived. This is the only admission spot in the entire city. What an honor." Sam, the center of attention, was glowing with excitement, struggling to contain his exhilaration, and reached out to take it, saying, "This is not just an honor for me alone." His voice suddenly stopped. The teacher, holding the unopened admission letter, quickly passed his hand and directly handed it to me. Sam watched me take the admission letter, only stunned for a moment, then quickly frowned and declared, "Teacher, leaders, I have broken up with Bella. We never got married, and I've already repaid everything I owed the Shu family. She's not worthy of touching my admission letter. I have nothing more to do with the Shu family." The teacher looked utterly confused, glancing at him and then at me. "Sam, but this admission letter is..." Before I could even open the envelope, Wendy snatched it out of my hand. She spoke with righteous indignation. "Dear leaders, although Sam was once in a relationship with her, it was all because Bella threatened him with the incident of selling blood. Sam is soft-hearted, unable to bear seeing the young girl mistreat herself, and was forced into a relationship with her out of helplessness. Don't believe me? Look." My sleeve was yanked forcefully by her, revealing the horrifying purple bruises on my arm. "Now that she sees Sam got into Q, she regrets breaking up too early and has come to cause trouble while the leaders are present, trying to win him back through threats." "Back to him?" Everyone gasped when they saw the needle marks on my arm. I knew it. How could Bella have ever fallen for a little village girl like her, trying to tie a man down by selling blood? Tsk. What a disgrace to herself. The mocking jeers around me were like boiling oil, falling on the countless scars on my arm. I tried desperately to cover up, but my sleeve had already been torn by Wendy. Sam watched coldly, fully aware that this was the most shameful and least wanted thing in my heart, yet his expression showed no sign of pity. The village secretary was afraid that I had really come to cause trouble today, and with a wave of his hand, he wanted to have me removed. A group of people arrived from outside the shed. "It's the director of the Q University admissions office," the director chuckled. "I heard your village produced a top scorer, so I came to deliver the scholarship." The stack of brand new 100 yuan notes in her hand was quite thick. Wendy's eyes sparkled with surprise, but the next moment she looked worriedly at Sam, both of them subtly glancing towards someone in the corner of the banquet. "Go. The other party is the middleman dealing in black market admissions." Sam himself didn't expect such a high score, and it's hard to stay low-key, let alone the director of Q University's admissions office coming in person. "In person," he whispered soothingly. "It's okay, now that we have the scholarship, right? We can just use that money to pay it back. No need to sell the spot." Wendy was so overjoyed and excited that she clutched his hand tightly, only to hear Sam exclaiming confidently, "Wendy, I'll take you to the capital this year." That scholarship made everyone present green with envy. Wow, who would have thought studying could earn money? That's a huge blessing. "Bella, no, number one scholar, could you give my two boys some guidance? I don't expect them to get into Q. As long as they can get into any university, it'll be like my Lincoln family's ancestors are sending smoke signals from the grave." I was pushed to the back by the eager crowd surrounding Sam, when suddenly, my arm felt warm. The teacher covered me with her coat out of concern. She knew all too well how I had managed everything for Sam over the past year, allowing him to focus on his studies in peace. "Bella, what exactly is going on between you and Sam? Did you really break up?" I had thought my heart was as dry as dead wood, incapable of any more emotions, but now, faced with the teacher's concerned gaze, her eyes suddenly stung with tears. "Yeah, we broke up," amidst the joyful congratulations in the crowd. Sam was handing Wendy the thick stack of scholarship money without a word into her hands. The teacher seemed to have finally figured something out, and her eyes slowly darkened. Sam was basking in the glory of the moment, his face beaming with joy. Achieving high honors and wedding bliss are the two greatest joys in life. Just as he felt he would remember this day forever, he was suddenly called out. Sam turned his head and saw the teacher pulling me through the crowd, his brow furrowing coldly. "Teacher Lin, I appreciate your cultivation of me, but if you still want to plead for someone's pity, it's really unnecessary." "Sam," the teacher interrupted him sternly, "since you've already broken off with Bella, just give the teacher a face and be a decent person." Parting amicably with her, be a decent person, and part on good terms, on such a good day. Don't even think about the Bella scholarship. It's not good to make a big fuss. Everyone present thought they had misheard. Sam was slightly stunned, as if hearing the most absurd joke, and his face fell. "Teacher Lin, what are you talking about? Am I the one causing trouble here? It's clearly Bella who's being clingy and unwilling to part ways amicably today." He obviously thought, like everyone else, that the teacher had just misspoken earlier. With the teacher's encouraging gaze, I stepped forward, my voice cool yet firm. "Sam, I told you earlier, of course, you wouldn't have expected to score so high. Because the first place is mine. Bella, make decisions decisively and never regret them. Consider it a year of my youth wasted, but what a pity, today I realized you're even worse than that horny boar in the village, even going so far as to steal my college entrance exam scores and admission spot. You'd stoop that low." Not just Sam, all the leaders around looked equally astonished and incredulous. Sam looked around, biting his teeth in disbelief and laughing. "Bella, considering you've been serving me for a year, today you've ruined my good day with your lies. I won't hand you over to the authorities, dispose of her properly, but if you keep acting crazy, don't blame me for being ruthless." A sudden bang came from behind. Wendy had accidentally knocked over the banquet table. She had already opened the admission letter, intending to read it out loud in front of everyone to clear Sam's name and make me completely give up. But when she caught sight of the glaring name on the letter, her pupils instantly froze. Bottles and dishes on the table clattered to the ground. Sam's brow twitched sharply as he noticed Wendy had already opened the envelope, prompting her to read it out. "Wendy, it's okay, now that you're my fiancée. Those siblings from the Smith family won't dare to bully you anymore. Go ahead and read it boldly." But Wendy's lips trembled, her face gradually paling, and she looked up at him with a panicked gaze. Sam didn't know what she was dawdling about, so he strode over, anxious to grab the admission notice. Just as he was about to gloat, his expression suddenly changed. what on earth is going on? He looked at it again and again, even rubbing his eyes hard. Sam, what's going on? The village secretary didn't know the details. As soon as he heard this morning that the top score in the city was from their village, he rushed over to congratulate. Congratulations, Bella had indeed claimed to be the top scorer in the village's estimation. Who else could it be but him as the top scholar? It wasn't until now that the village secretary realized something might have gone wrong. Sam suddenly looked up, his gaze piercing through the crowd and directly at me. He was breathing erratically, murmuring, "How is that possible? How could it possibly say Bella's name?" His voice was soft, tinged with an unacknowledged panic, but everyone present heard it clearly. The noisy banquet suddenly fell so silent that you could hear a pin drop. Sam stared at me intently, his mind completely blank. Sensing something amiss, he suddenly lowered his head and began frantically rubbing at the name on the admission letter. He muttered repeatedly, "This can't be right. Someone must be playing tricks. I'm the sole top scorer admitted to Q. I'm the one who, ugh." Before I could step forward, my brother had already thrown a heavy punch at Sam's face. He retrieved the admission notice that was almost torn by him. Sam fell to the ground in a disheveled state, his glasses shattered. He seemed oblivious to the pain and quickly got up, pointing in our direction. "What the hell are you doing?" This is my admission notice, mine." Suddenly remembered something and turned to find the leader for help. Bella, a village girl who can't even read, how could she possibly get into Q University? This is a complete joke. The director of the admissions office stepped forward, looking at him with cold eyes. "I said it was a female student who was admitted. I just thought the news I received was wrong. It turns out someone impersonated. How dare you, now that you've been exposed, try to turn the tables and question the fairness and standards of Q's admissions? Is that so?" Sam didn't dare offend the leaders of the admissions office. He swallowed hard and stammered an explanation. I didn't mean that." His gaze returned to me, shielded by my brother, my forehead now beaded with cold sweat, veins pulsing visibly as I forced a composed smile. "Bella, no wonder you insisted on registering for the college entrance exam with me. You were plotting something this vile all along. We're in the same exam hall. You must have schemed to cheat off me or secretly swapped our papers." "Yes, that's exactly it." I held my brother's fist as it tightened again, and I couldn't help but giggle. "Sam, are you saying that I, the top scorer, should copy your paper, which is 30 points lower than mine?" In the next moment, others caught on and began to laugh one after another. "Isn't that right? How can someone with a much higher score copy from someone with a lower score?" As for his insistence that I tampered with the exam papers, not only did Teacher Lin and the admissions office director step forward, but even the city leaders did, their faces solemn. The title of top scorer in the college entrance exam is a matter of honor for the entire city, not something you can casually slander. "Bella, if you truly feel there's been an injustice with your results, we will investigate and ensure you get justice. But if it turns out you were just spreading rumors and slandering our city's top scorer, you'll have to face the consequences." Sam's knees buckled, and he half collapsed to the ground. In an instant, all the flattering and adoring gazes around him turned into astonishment, sympathy, and ridicule. Wendy stood behind him, overwhelmed with shame under the varied gazes of those around her, her palms already sweaty. She still couldn't figure it out. Why did Sam's name on the perfectly fine admission letter suddenly change to Bella's? Just as she mustered the courage to step forward and help Sam up, the stack of cash she was still tightly holding was ruthlessly snatched away by Leo, who didn't even glance at her again, leaving only a cold, distant figure. Wendy's hand was hurt, and tears of grievance quickly welled up in her eyes, as she had never been treated so coldly by Leo before. Perhaps seeing Sam's deeply defeated and disheartened appearance, Teacher Lin shook his head and sighed, reminding him, "Sam, your score isn't low, and it's okay if you didn't get into Q University. You still have 2 other options. At the time, for safety's sake, I advised you to fill in different schools for your second and third choices. Where did you end up filling in? Capital Normal University, or T University, or Wuhan University?" The leaders couldn't bear to see such a promising talent lose heart. One by one, they said, "These are all top-tier universities. Bella, with your scores, getting into any of these shouldn't be a problem." "Tier universities, Bella, with your scores, getting into any of these shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, you're just aiming too high. It's not like you have to go to Q." Wendy blinked hard, hope rekindling in her heart. She quickly helped Sam to his feet, speaking softly to comfort him. "Yes, Sam. We don't necessarily have to go to Q. With your scores, the second or third choice universities are more than enough for you to shine." show your talents." As she spoke, she glanced at me from a distance, raising her voice as if to make amends, to avoid going to Q and being pestered by some shameless person. What a misfortune, however. The man she was comforting seemed to ignore her, his head deeply bowed, his eyes hidden by his bangs. Lynn suddenly realized something, her eyebrows shooting up in astonishment. "Sam, what on earth did you put for your other 2 college choices? Don't tell me you only applied to Q." Sam's ears were filled with a dull roar, the voices around him fading in and out like distant echoes. Suddenly, as if sensing something, he slowly raised his eyes and met a dark, fierce gaze from a corner of the crowd. His lips parted, but no sound came out. He knew it was all over. In the blink of an eye, summer turned to autumn. "I've been in school for 3 months now, gradually adjusting to the vast and open environment of the capital. It's quite a coincidence that I'm studying the same physics major that Sam pursued in my previous life. However, experiencing the pinnacle of academic institutions as a student rather than a nanny, I feel I've never been so free and open. It's as if this is the true rebirth. Focusing on academic and research pursuits, making friends with like-minded peers." All past events gradually faded from my memory. On the first day of winter, my brother came to Q University to see me, bringing special products from our hometown. Seeing my improved complexion, he was relieved and reminded me to share the special products with my roommates, bringing it up without fail. "After you left, he was constantly harassed by those from the black market, demanding he repay his debts. Sam had some nerve. Rumor has it he auctioned off admission slots in advance, guaranteeing success, and sold them for a full 5,000 yuan. Leo glanced at his sister's calm expression, seeing she genuinely seemed over that guy. He changed the subject without another word. After failing the exams, Sam got cornered by loan sharks that very night. They taught him a brutal lesson, left him with a broken arm. Eventually, he had to beg Wendy to sell the clothes, shoes, watches, and other high-end gifts he had previously given her to repay the debt. Only a portion of the money was repaid, saving his life. Additionally, the money he spent on the extravagant graduation banquet was also on credit. Once he failed the exam, he was completely reduced to a homeless dog. He was in debt everywhere and condemned by everyone. But even so, Wendy still didn't leave him. The two of them lay low for a while, then returned to the educated youth compound to resume their shared life. Perhaps she still held hope for Sam's future, as he had firmly decided to retake the exam for another year. When I saw my brother off at the train station, he smiled and told me, "After the new year this year, I'll take care of the house and land at home, and then I'll go out and make my own way." Learning from my sister, he was really impressed by my dedication to studying late into the night back then. I also smiled and said, "That's great. From now on, we siblings will have each other to rely on. Brother, I believe in you." Leo suddenly raised his hand and gently stroked my head with affection. "I'll always be your rock, Bella. That hasn't changed, and it never will." His gaze lingered on the fading marks on my arm, though he seemed to have so much to say. In the end he just sighed remorsefully. "Promise me you won't do anything foolish again." My nose stung with unshed tears, knowing how deeply this pained him. I kept the fact that I had sold blood for a whole year for Sam from him, and my brother had no idea. Struggling to suppress the bitterness in my throat, I smiled and said, "Brother, you too, we siblings must never be foolish again." That winter vacation, I took the train home for the new year, and while there, I tidied up the house for my brother, waiting for him to come to the capital in the spring. Along the way, any villagers who recognized me came up with great enthusiasm and joy. "Oh my, Bella has really changed. In the blink of an eye. She's so stylish that even Auntie doesn't recognize her. Isn't that right?" Bella is a college student, and the only one from our village who got into Q University, I told the neighbors. The villagers are all so envious. "Bella, when you find a great partner in the capital, don't forget to bring them back to the village for everyone to see." Everyone was so enthusiastic, and I smiled and responded to each one. Finally heading back to my own home, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure as I passed by the educated youth compound. Wendy didn't notice me. She was heavily pregnant, bending down with great difficulty to pick winter vegetables from the field. "Is she pregnant?" Her baby bump looks to be about 4 or 5 months along. The beautiful long hair she treasured most when she was my sister-in-law has been cut short, and she's wearing a patched gray coat. Her hands full as she picks vegetables. It's chilblains. I quickly averted my gaze and walked past silently. In just a few short days back in the village, people coming to my house to offer condolences and get close were almost breaking down the door. My brother had already divided the New Year's pork early, simmering it fragrantly in the pot, and sighed with resignation, "Bella, you have no idea how crazy those matchmakers went when they heard you were coming back for the new year to introduce you to some eligible bachelors. It was insane, luckily. Your brother here is reliable and stopped them all." I asked him, "What about you, brother? Are you still looking?" Leo paused for a moment, then calmly smiled. "You don't think I'm still hung up on her, do you?" He lightly tapped my head with a rice spoon and hurried to lift the pot lid. "Why would I have such thoughts? Let's not talk about this now. As for your brother, I'm solely focused on making money. The rest can wait. After dinner, I went out for a walk, not far from home. A man walking quickly with his head down almost bumped into me. He was holding a book, and when he looked up, his gloomy, silent face stiffened. In just half a year, Sam had aged noticeably, with messy hair and stubble, and his clothes were dirty, no longer as neat as before. It's no surprise that he's in high spirits today. I know all too well how difficult he was to deal with during his exam preparation and retake period. However, nowadays, no one is there to quietly take care of all the little things for him, allowing him to remain oblivious to the outside world. Oh, and he still has Wendy. However, with her pregnant belly, she can't even cook or tend to a fire, let alone take care of herself. I calmly averted my gaze and was about to leave. "Bella, I truly admire you," Sam suddenly spoke, his eyes filled with dark fury. "You knew your estimated score was higher than mine. Yet you watched me blindly fill out my Q University application without saying a word, deliberately setting me up. You played me." Remembering that humiliating and painful day, he breathed heavily and clenched his teeth, saying, "What have I ever done to you? You couldn't just part ways amicably. You had to do this to me. You couldn't just part ways amicably. You had to do this to me." A sudden flash of my last moment in my previous life crossed my mind. I asked him the same thing. "What exactly did I, Bella, do wrong to you?" But before I could get a response, I lost my breath. The grotesque face buried deep in my memory overlapped with the haggard, gloomy visage of the man before me. I pursed my lips and shook my head. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that I didn't give up my bright future for you again." That night, Sam might have chased after me for a few steps in the distance, shouting some bold declaration about acing the retake exams to get into Q this time. I didn't catch his words, nor did I care. When spring came, my brother finally arrived in the capital, though he soon joined the southern migration wave to S-City. Not long after, a letter arrived saying he'd teamed up with some buddies to start a small business. A year of study quickly passed, and during the summer of my second year at Q University, I was invited back to my hometown by Teacher Lin to give an experience-sharing speech to the new batch of candidates. I shared my experiences with the new group of exam takers. Seeing how poised and graceful I had grown, Teacher Lin was very pleased. When she looked at the red paper announcing the admissions results on the wall this year, she sighed. "Sam failed the exam again this year. His scores, let's not even mention them." Perhaps it was the month before the college entrance exam when Jiqing left with the child, which hit him really hard. Before leaving, Teacher Lin also told me that Sam's scores this year could have gotten him into a provincial normal college, but he insisted on filling his application form with Q University. Judging by his attitude, he probably wants to repeat the third year again, and even Teacher Lin can't persuade him. 3 years later, I graduated from university and chose to continue my studies for a master's degree at Q University. My advisor is a leading authority in our field in China and holds me in high regard. On the day of my graduation ceremony, I took off my academic gown and was picked up by my brother and sister-in-law to attend their child's full moon banquet. My brother is very hardworking. Within the second year, he had already made his business thrive in S-City, and this year, he even moved to the capital. Following my advice, he bought several courtyard houses. He met his new sister-in-law on a train 2 years ago. My sister-in-law was also a country girl, on her train ride to S-City for work. She dozed off and had her luggage stolen. Though tear stains streaked her face, she bit her lip, pretending she hadn't been crying. My brother casually lent her 50 yuan for living expenses. Quite coincidentally, he even helped her land a job where workers were urgently needed. The following year, they got married in S-City. The celebration for my niece's full moon was grand and festive, with some familiar faces from our hometown invited. Teacher Lin traveled all the way to the capital to attend my graduation ceremony and also came to the full moon celebration, happily entertaining my sister-in-law, the pink and chubby little niece. Only after finishing dinner did she lower her voice. "Do you remember Sam?" I was surprised she would ask that. "How could I forget?" Teacher Lin sighed. "He got into a junior college last year. He had finally accepted his fate and planned to go study, and I was quite happy about it. The night before they were set to leave, one, who had been gone for years, suddenly returned with a child, demanding a large sum of alimony. He threatened that if he didn't get it, he would report to the college that the man had once tried to secretly sell his admission spot on the black market, ruining his chances of going to school. The two of them started arguing, and it was unclear who threw the first punch. By the next morning when they were discovered, both men were full of stab wounds. Their blood completely drained. When they were found early the next morning, both of them were covered with knife wounds, and all their blood had drained away. In Teacher Lin's eyes, there was a sense of weariness. Given his personality, it's a good thing, Bella, you broke up with him back then. It's just a pity about that child. After hearing this, I remained silent for a long time. Without me in this life, I can foresee that Sam's future might not be as smooth as it could have been. But he ended up like this. What goes around comes around. Miss Lin didn't catch it clearly. Bella, what did you say? I shook my head and smiled while holding my little niece. It's nothing. By the way, Teacher Lin, I'm still donating a batch of textbooks, stationery, and reference books to our village this year. I'll leave it to you to distribute them to the students after you return. After that, please distribute them to the students. Outside the window, the summer sun is bright and warm. My life will no longer be a smooth path from here on. What are your thoughts after hearing the two stories above? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.